Well, here, as you know, 2019, this is our year of acceleration, our year of acceleration. And we've been saying that our acceleration is coming out of our association. Our acceleration is coming out of our association. Our connection with Jesus is bringing the acceleration in our lives. Now, it's not just your confession about Jesus. It's good to have that confession. We need to have that confession. But how many of you know it's so much more about your daily connection with Jesus? If you want to accelerate in this life, it's not just about having the right confession. I need a daily connection with Jesus. And out of that connection with Jesus should come two things: discipleship and evangelism. Everybody say discipleship. Everybody say evangelism. Okay, you say, man, I'm new to faith. I'm new to Northpoint Community Church. I'm new to the church world in general. I don't really have a clear understanding of what those words mean. Let me just tell you, we define those words here at Northpoint as this. We define discipleship as our process to progress. Our process to progress. It is just the process of us transforming and becoming everything that God created us to be. That doesn't happen in a prayer. It doesn't happen overnight. No, it is a transforming process. And we enter into that process to get the progress of what we want to see in our lives, and that is discipleship. But we have also defined the word evangelism. And evangelism is simply our process of proclaiming. Our process of proclaiming. It is us telling other people about what God has done in our lives and what God can do in their lives. So if discipleship is our process of transforming, then evangelism is our process of transferring. It's where we take what God has done in us and we begin to give that out and tell other people about what God has done and is doing in our lives. And for the last few weeks, we've been in a series of messages entitled Come and See. Come and see. And we've been talking about this topic of evangelism for the last few weeks. And we just came out of a series of messages called Follow Me. And we were talking about discipleship. So we've been looking at the last 10 weeks. It's going to be 10 weeks total that we're going to look at discipleship and evangelism, because this is what should be coming out of our lives as followers of Christ. And as we've been in this series, we've been looking at a story in John chapter 1, and there's a man by the name of Philip, and Philip has decided to become a follower of Jesus, and it says this in verse 5 of John chapter 1, "Then Philip went to look for Nathanael and told him, 'We have found the very person Moses and the prophets wrote about. His name is Jesus, the son of Joseph from Nazareth.'" "Nazareth," exclaimed Nathanael. "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" "Come and see for yourself," Philip replied. As they approached Jesus, "Now here is a genuine son of Israel, a man of complete integrity." "How do you know about me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus replied, "I could see you under the fig tree before Philip found you." Then Nathanael exclaimed, "Rabbi, teacher, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel." This morning I want to talk to you just for a few moments on the topic of encountering Jesus. Encountering Jesus. Let's pray one more time. Father, I pray in the next few moments that you would do what only you can do. Mold us and make us into everything that you created and designed for us to be. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. And everybody in the room said, Amen. Well, when we're talking about evangelism, now we've already defined evangelism as that process of proclaiming. You see, evangelism is not about having a perfectly well-crafted theological argument. Evangelism is not about winning a religious discussion. No, evangelism is simply about introducing people to Jesus. But see, here's the thing with the concept of evangelism is it can get very, very intimidating. And people can get very, very stressed when you start talking about evangelism because they're like, I don't know who to tell. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to respond to their questions. I don't know. And all of a sudden, people get so stressed. And even as I'm preaching about evangelism, some of you are looking out there at me just like this right here. You're looking like this guy. He's coming. He's coming. It's coming. It's coming anymore. Hey, there we go. Some of you are like that. You're like, not another message about telling people about Jesus. That's how. Now that's if you're an extrovert. Now if you're an introvert and you listen to the message, that's how you look right there. Just, please. But here's why we have that response many times, is because we make evangelism something that it was never intended to be. And when we make something what it was never intended to be, we can have responses that aren't right and that are not reasonable. You see, every one of us, since we were small children, we have all told people stories about ourselves and told people stories about others. It's natural and it's normal. Evangelism is simply you telling people the story of your life, and it's you telling people the story of your life through the influence that God has had on your life. That's all evangelism is. It's just telling people a story. And we have all told people stories before. But whenever we try to make it something that it's not intended to be, we have one of those responses. But when we realize what the process of proclaiming actually is, what evangelism actually is, it's just me telling a story. All of a sudden I say, I can do that. I can tell a story. I've been telling stories all my life. It's normal and it's natural. And so today I want to just share with you 3 things that will help you help others to encounter Jesus. 3 things that will help you help others to encounter Jesus. Now, I really encourage you to take notes, whether that's on the back of the welcome card and you want to write that down, or take notes in your phone. And the reason I encourage you to take notes is we all know and believe here that the more notes you take in church, the bigger your mansion will be in heaven. And so I really encourage you today to really, really take notes. I mean, take a lot of notes. If you can add a room with every note that you take. You know, it's just if you're first time, we don't really believe that. But anyway, let's get to this. 3 things that will help you help others to encounter Jesus. Number 1 is this: know your role. Know your role. I am the initiator, not the savior. I am the introducer, not the closer. You see, if we do not know our role, then we can take on pressure and responsibility that does not belong to us. Jesus did not say, go into the world and be the answer. He said, go into the world and bring the answer. You see, there's a big difference. If you go into the world and you feel like you have to be the answer, you are carrying weight of responsibility that you were never intended to carry. But instead, Jesus says, no, you don't have to go in the world and be the answer. You just go into the world and bring the answer. No, do you notice in the story here? It's so interesting in our story that Jesus was close enough to see Nathanael, but Philip still brought his friend to Jesus. Jesus was close enough to see him, but Nathanael still had to come with Philip. This is what the Bible says right there in verse 47. It says, as they approached, this was Philip bringing Nathanael to Jesus. And this is so beautiful because what Jesus tells Nathanael, he says, I saw you over there before Philip even found you. And so we know that God sees us, and we know that God can do everything by himself, that God does not need us, but God has chosen to include us in the process. This is such a beautiful, beautiful thing, that it is God's desire that people bring people to Jesus. You see, Jesus could have walked right over there to Nathanael, found him right there under the fig tree, but that's not the way it goes. Instead, Philip goes to Nathanael and he says, come on, come with me. You got to come see this one that we have found. Come and see. You see, my mission is not to save the world, but to say something to it. My mission is not to save the world, but to say something to it. My mission is not to beat the world up because of its sin, but to bring the world the good news about its Savior. You see, we have to know our role. We've got to know what is our role. Our role is not to be the Savior. Our role is just to say something to the world. We are not called to save the world, but we are called to say something to it. We are not called to beat the world up over their sin, but what we are called to do is to bring the world their answer, to bring the world the good news about the Savior who can help them with their sin, about the one who can create a way out of their depression and out of their addiction. We are the ones who bring the answer. We have to know our role. We have to know our role. There's two things that can happen when you don't see your role properly. Here's the first thing that can happen. When you don't see your role properly, if people do say yes to a relationship with Jesus, then we feel like we are the champion of the story. If we don't know we're just the initiator, if we don't know that we're just the introducer, then whenever somebody says yes to Jesus, we make ourselves the champion of the story. But Jesus is always the champion of the story because I cannot do what he can do. He is always the champion of the story, but I got to know my role. Here's the second thing that happens if we don't see our role properly is that if people say no to a relationship with Jesus, we feel like something is wrong with us. We take that rejection personally because we feel like we are responsible for making it happen, that we have to see it all the way to the end. And whenever we feel that and somebody says no thank you to relationship with Jesus, now all of a sudden we have taken that upon ourselves and the rejection is personal. You see, this is why I have to understand my role in the process. I am not responsible for the outcomes. I'm just responsible for what comes out of my mouth. I'm not responsible for the outcome. See, this is why so many times we don't do evangelism because we don't understand our role in evangelism. Because I feel like if I start the conversation, I got to finish the conversation. I feel like if I engage, then I also have to finish. I feel like I am responsible for making sure that this person comes into saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. I feel like I got to see it all the way through. And whenever I put that weight and that pressure on myself, then I don't do what God has asked me to do, and that's just to be the initiator. See, it's because I don't know my role. I don't know my role. But whenever I understand that I am only here to introduce Jesus, I am only here to initiate this journey. This is what I am here to do. Don't we see that's exactly what Philip did in the story? He goes to find Nathanael and he says, look, you need to come and see. You need to come and get in the proximity of this man. You need to come and gain some awareness of this man. You just need to come and get in his presence. You just need to take a couple steps and get a little bit closer to him because whenever you get closer to him, he will do what only he can do, but I have to know my role in the process. See, if we get our roles confused and we think that we have to do Jesus's job, I'm not sure that I can do Jesus's job, and so I'm not going to engage Nathanael under the fig tree because I'm not sure that I can take this thing all the way to completion, and because I'm not sure that I can take it all the way to completion, do I really want to even start? Do I really want to engage? Do I really want to invite? Do I really want to begin the process? You see, but when you know your role, you say, I can do that. I can do that. I can hand out an invite card and invite somebody to come to church. I can do that. I can tell a story to somebody about what God has done in my life. I can do that. I can start the process. That's all it takes. I have to know my role. If you want to help people to encounter Jesus, you got to know your role. Here's the second thing you got to do is you have to smooth your path. Know your role. The second thing you have to do is you have to smooth the path. Smooth the path. Help people get to Jesus. Help people get to Jesus. Don't intentionally or unintentionally set up roadblocks for them on their journey. Now, let me just give you some potential roadblocks, things that can become a roadblock. Being mean and judgmental is not attractive. Being mean and judgmental is not attractive. If you are trying to smooth the path, don't be mean and judgmental because it sets up roadblocks for people. Fighting to win an argument seldom leads to winning a person. Fighting to win an argument seldom ever wins a person. And so don't set up a roadblock. No, we are here to smooth the path. Here's some potential roadblocks. Proving that you are holier than other people is not that appealing. Proving that you are more righteous that you got your stuff more together, that you are holier than other people. That is not very appealing. Talking down to others or about others, that's not enjoyable. It's not enjoyable. Talking down about other people, about other denominations, talking down about different segments, talking down, that is not enjoyable for people. You are not smoothing the path. Instead, what you are doing is you are setting up roadblocks along the journey. Being negative, anxious, irritable, hopeless, that is not inviting. It's not inviting. It's setting up roadblocks along the way. So how do we smooth the path? Okay, so now we see some of these roadblocks. How do we smooth the path? The first thing that we can do to smooth the path is to be vulnerable. How do you smooth the path? You be vulnerable. You be honest. Remember to tell the beginning of your story and not just the end. Tell the beginning of your story. You might be living in victory today, so talk about yesterday. You might be 20 years into this journey with Jesus, and you might have figured a lot of things out, and you might have overcome a lot of things in your life, but don't just talk about the 20 years, talk about day 2. Talk about day 2. Be vulnerable about what you have been through and what you have struggled with. You see, you've got to be willing to talk about your past struggles. Now, I would say this to you today, is that people can be inspired by your strength, but they will always identify with your struggle. People can be inspired by your strength. It's okay to talk about where you are at 20 years. That's okay, because people can be inspired by your strength, and they know that there's hope for them, that I don't always have to be where I am. There is inspiration in hearing about that, but can I tell you that people will always identify with your struggle? They can't relate to your 20-year overcoming perfect life. They can't relate to your 20-year have accomplished all that. They can't relate to that. But what they can relate to is your day 2 struggle. Yes. They can't relate to your day 2 questions. They can't relate to your day 2 doubts. They can't relate to your day 2 addictions. They can't relate to that. And so as you begin to bring people and smooth the path for people, make sure you are telling people about your past struggles. Not just that, hey, make sure you're telling people about your current weaknesses as well. Make sure you're telling people about your current weaknesses. Acting like you don't have a weakness will just cause people to think, what else are you lying about? When you act like you don't have a weakness today, now you're just telling somebody that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, that he will give them this life, which we all know to be true, and you're telling them that, but then you tell people, but I don't have any weaknesses today. I don't really have any struggles today. I don't really have anything. All I've got is victory. All I got, I'm just overflowing in love and peace and pain. I just got all the fruits of the Spirit coming out of my life just every which way. I don't have any more struggle. I don't have any weakness. Whenever you do, then they start wondering, is Jesus really the way, the truth, and the life? Because you're not fooling anybody. Everybody know, every person in this room, whether you're standing on the stage or you're sitting in the chair, everybody in this room has current weaknesses, and you got to be willing to share your weaknesses with other people. I was on a coaching call with the CEO of a fairly large company this week, and as I was talking to him, he was talking about his struggle, and he was talking about dealing with uncertainty. It's actually what Romeo was up here talking about at the beginning, wanting to control everything. But, whenever things are uncertain, we get paralyzed. We don't want to move forward. And so we're having this talk, and man, I pulled out of my briefcase, and I said, man, look at my journal this morning. Look what I was writing about. Look what I put in my notes for my life. And I began to show him. I had uncertainty written there with a huge circle around it, because listen, if you were here last Sunday, I don't just tell you to do things. I do the things that I tell you to do. And last Sunday, we asked 3 questions. We said, what are the barriers to you believing more, right? What are the obstacles to you observing more? What are the excuses to you experiencing more? And I had those questions answered. And so many of those questions came back to this one thing, uncertainty. And I know that if I live in uncertainty and I'm paralyzed by uncertainty because I'm waiting for all the data to add up, and I'm waiting for the pathway to be completely clear, and I'm waiting for everything to make sense, then I will never move. And if I don't move, this church can't go as far as it needs to go. My family won't go as far as it needs to go. And I will never move into the life that God created me to live. And so I was showing him, this is not something I'm telling you out of a book. This is not something I'm telling you that I learned in the classroom. I'm speaking to you right now from my own life. This is my struggle and weakness today. So you got to be willing to talk to people about your weaknesses. You got to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. If you want to smooth the path, you got to be vulnerable. But not just be vulnerable. Here's another thing that you got to do to smooth the path. That is be understanding. Be understanding. Don't act shocked or get angry when people tell you about the poor decisions they've made in their past or their current struggles today. Don't get angry. Don't get shocked. Don't get appalled. Don't get disgusted. When somebody tells you, I'm struggling with my sexuality, when somebody tells you, I'm currently having an affair right now, when somebody tells you, I'm stealing money from my business, you can't just flip out and have this dramatic response. Here's what you have to do. You have to be understanding. You have to be understanding. Understanding someone's sin doesn't mean that I'm ignoring it as sin. It just means that the person is more important than their problem. You see, when I make it all about their issue, what I'm saying is that thing is more important than you. Whenever I flip out, whenever I have a response like, oh my God, I can't believe, what were you thinking? How could you ever, and I have that response. Whenever I have that response, I'm responding to the problem and not the person. And we see over and over again throughout the Gospels that Jesus was all about people, not about the problem. Jesus took care of the people first. And whenever Jesus took care of people, he wasn't ignoring sin. We know that Jesus pointed out what sin was, but the person was more important. The person was more important. And so whenever I'm smoothing the path, I've got to be understanding. The Bible says that Jesus was always hanging with notorious sinners. Notorious sinners. We have so many encounters of Jesus engaging. They took the woman who was caught in the act of adultery and they threw the woman down. And what did Jesus do first? Did Jesus attack the problem or did he love the person? No, he loved the person first, and then Jesus can take care of the problem. You see, and that's the way we have to be. We have to take care of the person first, and then we trust God to take care of the problem later. But I've got to always focus on the person if I want to smooth the path. You see, your response to people's worst moments is what can help them get to their best moments. When people share with you the worst moment of their life, and you are understanding of that moment, it can lead them to the best moments in their future. But if you freak out and flip out, then what you do is you set up a roadblock on their journey. But if you put the person first and you love them where they are, and here's the thing is that we should never ever get surprised that sinners sin. Because we are one of them. And how would you want somebody else to respond to you? You want somebody to flip out on you? Now, here's the thing. Now, this is the 11:15 extra. You get the extra edition, okay? Here's what I would say. The longer you stay in church, the better you get at hiding stuff. So you just learn how to hide more things. We just become expert in hiding sin. So everybody else's sin is out there. And so I'm going to flip out on your sin. But if we ever dug deep enough to get into your sin, I don't want you to flip out on me. Right? Sinners sin. It's who we are. It's what we do. Okay? And so what we need to do is we need to respond to others the way that we would want them to respond to us. If I come to you with the issue, I want you to be understanding of my struggle. I want you to be understanding of my pain. I want you to be understanding. I don't want you to ignore it and say, oh, well, that's not really sin. Everything's going to be okay. But I do want you to understand and see me over my problem. Right? We got to be understanding. We got to be understanding. Handle people's worst moments so they can get to their best moments. When your response is understanding, guess what? You build a bridge for them to stand on. When your response is understanding, you are building a bridge for them to stand on. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build bridges for people, not put up roadblocks. We want to build bridges. I'm trying to get you on this pathway of following Jesus. I need to build a bridge for you so that you can stand on to get from the life that you're living now into the life that God has called you to live. And if I put up a roadblock, you can't get there. But if I build a bridge, you got something to stand on and walk across. I mean, just think about, in our story, think about Philip. He didn't get upset with Nathanael over his comment about Nazareth. He didn't flip out on him. I mean, can't you see the excitement in Philip? He's just connected with Jesus. He's decided to follow Jesus. He has made up his mind that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world. He is the Son of God. And he runs to Nathanael and he says, hey, Nathanael, we have found him. I mean, then he gets like, boom, he's preaching, right? We have found the one that Moses prophesied about. We have found the one that the prophets told us we were coming. We have found the one. And the guy's like, Nazareth? Nazareth? I mean, Philip could have flipped out on him. Nazareth, yeah, see, that's your problem, Nathaniel. You always get negative, finding everything wrong. The glass is never half full, it's always half empty. You know, you just, why don't you just sit right there under your tree and have it your way, Nathaniel? You did this to yourself. And he could have just turned around. That was not his response. He was understanding to the person. He saw the person. He didn't see the person's prejudice. He saw the person. Because Nathaniel had a prejudice. Nazareth, nothing good could come from Nazareth. He had a prejudice against a whole group of people, had a prejudice against the whole town. Nothing good can come from Nazareth. And Philip was saying, that's okay. I know that's what your daddy said. That's what your granddaddy said. That's what your great-granddaddy said. I know that's what society has told you. I know that's the culture that you grew up in. But I'm going to look past all of that, and I'm going to see the person, and I'm going to be understanding. I'm going to create a bridge right here. You can walk over the bridge because I'm not going to address the problem. All I see is the person, and I will be understanding so you can have a bridge to get to Jesus. It's what people need. How do you smooth the path? You be vulnerable, you be understanding, and lastly, you be positive. You be positive. Give people hope. Philip says, come and see. This is going to blow your mind. It's better than I could even tell you about in words. Come and see. You see, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is or how many doubts somebody has. You always have to reassure them that God is bigger than it all. Well, you don't know how many questions I have. God can answer every single one of them. You don't know my past and all the places that I've been and all the things that I've done. I know that God can forgive every single one of them. Well, you don't know all the things that I'm carrying. I know that God can handle everything that you've ever been through and everything that you are going to go through. God is bigger than it all. We have to be positive. But what happens is we can get caught up. People have so many issues, and we get caught up on the fact of how hard it's going to be for them to overcome those issues and how long it's going to take for them to change their life. And instead of smoothing the path, we build roadblocks. And then what people want to say is, well, I'm just trying to be real. I'm just trying to be real. No, what we're trying to do is build a bridge to get people on the pathway. And you say you're trying to be real. What you're being is real stupid because you're putting a roadblock where there needs to be a bridge. I'm trying to get people into relationship with Jesus. I don't need to keep it real right now. I need to build a real bridge for them and be a real encouragement to them and be a real source of hope for them. I need to be real for them, and I got to get them to Jesus because he's the only hope they got. So I got to be positive. I got to be positive. We got to stay positive. We got to stay hopeful. We got to stay encouraging. Remember, we are pointing people to the grace and the power of God. We are not pointing out people's failures, flaws, and mistakes. That's a positive. If this is what I'm trying to do, it's positive. Pointing people to the grace and the power and the forgiveness and the love of God. I'm telling you right now, that is positive. But if I start pointing at people's mistakes and their failures and their flaws and their mishaps and everything that's wrong, you see, that gets really negative real fast. And if I want to smooth the path, I've got to be positive. Got to be positive. I want to smooth the path. Here's the third thing. If you want to help others encounter Jesus, okay, not only do you need to know your role, not only do you need to smooth the path, but lastly, you need to narrow your focus. Narrow your focus. Jesus said this. He said to go into all the world. Go into all the world. But do you know what your world needs? Your world needs a name. Your world needs a name. Philip had a friend in his world that was named Nathanael. And Nathanael became Philip's world. You see, sometimes the magnitude of the assignment that Jesus gave all of us as believers Jesus didn't just give it to the apostles, he didn't just give it to the prophets, didn't just give it to the pastors, to the teachers, to the evangelists. No. Jesus gave this assignment to everyone who would be his follower. Jesus said, I want you to go into the world. I want you to proclaim my good news. I want you to make disciples. I want you to pray for the sick. This is what I want you to do. That's God's assignment. And here's what can happen so many times is the assignment is so big and so vast and so large that it can paralyze us from moving forward. How do I get to the world? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? How is this even going to happen? I know myself, and this is what we need to do. Whenever we see the vastness of the assignment, we need to narrow our focus, which simplifies the assignment. Narrow your focus and simplify the assignment. Who is in your world right now? Who is your Nathaniel? Who is in your life right now that you know needs to encounter Jesus? Who is in your life right now that you know needs to re-encounter Jesus because they haven't been actively engaged in relationship with God for 30 years? Who do you know that needs to get in relationship with Jesus? You see, you don't have to engage everybody, but everybody needs to engage somebody. You don't have to engage everybody. But everybody needs to engage somebody. And here's what I would encourage you to do in that place where you're taking notes right now because you want that big mansion in heaven. And I trust that you're taking those notes. And right there where you're taking notes, I want you to write down the name of your Nathaniel because everybody in this room has one. Everybody in this room right now has a friend that's sitting under a fig tree. Everybody has a Nathaniel that's sitting under the fig tree of shame and pain, that's sitting under the fig tree of guilt and condemnation, that's sitting under the fig tree of their own pride and self-sufficiency, that's sitting under the fig tree of their broken heart, that's sitting under the fig tree of their last divorce, that's sitting under the fig tree of what they're going through right now in their life, and they're sitting under that fig tree. Every single person in this room has a Nathaniel. We have somebody that we know. Who is your Nathaniel? I encourage you, write their name down. If you don't write their name down, what happens is that we take a risk. We take a risk whenever we say things like this. I'm going to invite somebody to church. I'm going to invite somebody to church. That's so broad. It's so open-ended. And therefore, it probably won't happen. It's like the gym name, Anytime Fitness. This is why nobody goes to Anytime Fitness, because I can go anytime. I don't go before work because I can go at lunchtime. I don't go at lunchtime because I can go when I get off work. I don't go when I get off work because I can go at 10 p.m. I mean, it's open anytime, and because it's open anytime, I never go anytime. So what we got to do is we got to narrow our focus. Instead of saying, I'm going to invite somebody to church sometime, we say, I'm going to invite Ricky to Easter, and I'm going to do it on Wednesday when I have lunch with him. You see, you name your Nathaniel, and you start praying for your Nathaniel, and you plan to engage that Nathaniel, and you take that invite card that's right there on your seat, and you write Ricky's name down there, right there in your notes, and you say, on Wednesday, I'm going to invite Ricky to come to church with me on Easter Sunday, and we have lunch with Ricky, and at the end of that lunch, say, hey, Ricky, man, listen, I would love for you to come with me. I'm just telling you right now, man, God's doing some great things at our church. God's doing some great things in my life. I would love for you to come with me. We got 3 services on Easter, 8, 9:30, 11:15. I'll meet you out in the parking lot at the front door. You text me if you're interested. Maybe we could go out and grab lunch afterwards or breakfast before. Hey, whatever that looks like, I would love for you to come with me. Be my guest. You can sit with me. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to introduce you to some people. And all you do right there is you give that card to Ricky. How did you give that card to Ricky? Because you narrowed your focus. If I walk around every day saying, I'm going to invite somebody someday. I live all my life. I walk around all these people. I'm like, who am I going to invite? Who am I going to invite? I don't know. When am I going to invite them? I don't know when I'm going to invite. When am I going back to church? I don't know. I don't know if can I invite them this weekend or next weekend? And I just walk around. I walk past all the people, and all the weeks just fly by. You get to the end of 2019, you never invited anybody. But if you're trying to help people encounter Jesus, you say, okay, I'm going to narrow my focus. And on Wednesday, Ricky's going to get the invite. Do you know in the statistic that came out just a couple years ago, they said 82% of people who get invited to church come to church. 82% of people that get invited to church come to church. If you invite your family and friends, 82% chance that they're going to come to church. Now, they might not come that Sunday, but they'll eventually come. 82%. But listen to this. Only 2% of the church invite people to church. 82% of people will come, but only 2% are actually inviting people to come. You see, we can get so excited and we can say, man, we're going to win the world for Jesus, but we have to remember that winning the world starts with winning one. It's the only way to win the world. It's the only way that we will see Jesus Christ's great commission fulfilled, that we would go into all the world. The only way we reach all the world is if you reach all of your world. One person at a time. Narrow your focus. Narrow your focus from everyone to one. Write that name down and make sure that you invite them to Easter Sunday. This is what I love about Philip in this story, is that Philip knew his role. Philip knew his role. He knew that he was just the initiator. He knew that he was just the introducer. He knew his role. He was not going to be thrown off by Nathanael's bad attitude. He was not going to be thrown off by Nathanael's comments. He was not going to get into a debate with Nathanael and try to prove to Nathanael of why this really was the Messiah and why Nazareth and all of these things. That's not what he did. He said, I know my role, and my role is just to introduce you to him. Philip knew his role. Not only that, Philip knew how to smooth the path. Philip knew how to smooth the path. He wasn't flipping out on Nathanael, setting up a roadblock. It wasn't about the problem that Nathanael had. He was so concerned about the person. He said, I'm gonna smooth the path for you right now. I'm gonna smooth the path. I'm gonna smooth the path by being vulnerable, smooth the path by being understanding. I'm gonna smooth the path here by being positive. And just say, you need to come check this out. I love the story because Philip narrowed his focus. It wasn't about just going out there and winning the whole world. No, he had a friend named Nathanael, and Nathanael became his world. And he said, I'm going to go tell my friend about what I have found. And Philip gets Nathanael moving through an invitation. Just an invitation. I mean, you ever think about it? Think about what we think about so many times when it comes to evangelism. This goes back to the whole, right? Because we have this idea of what evangelism is. Philip didn't preach a 3-point sermon. Philip didn't take out the scrolls and read all the scriptures in Isaiah and Jeremiah and Hosea and everything else, trying to prove to his friend that this was the Messiah. No. There's no 3-point sermon. No theological discussion. Simply an invitation. Simply an invitation to come and see. The same thing that you can do on Friday, this week. Same thing you can do. It's just go, hey, I just want to give you an invitation. I'm not going to preach you a 3-point sermon. I'm just going to tell you, I found something that's making a difference in my life, and I would love if you would come and just sit next to me. I love the story, and as we close, Philip gets Nathanael moving through this invitation, and then in verse 47, it says, as they approached, Jesus said, now here is a genuine son of Israel, a man of complete integrity. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus replied, I could see you under the fig tree before Philip found you. Then Nathanael exclaimed, Rabbi, teacher, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel. You see, earlier in these series of messages, I told you that whenever I engage someone, I'm not trying to create a moment, but I'm trying to create movement. I'm not trying to create a moment. When I engage somebody and start telling my story, I'm not trying to create this moment where they're going to be on both knees at Starbucks with tears running down their face, screaming out, God, I believe that you are the Savior of the Lord. I'm not going for the moment. If the moment happens, okay, fine. But I'm going for movement. I'm going so that people will take one step towards God. Because I know if I can create movement, then it creates momentum. And if I can get them moving closer and closer to Jesus, I know that Jesus can take it from there because he's been doing it for 2,000 years. And Jesus is so good at his job. Jesus is so good at his job that he knows exactly what to say. Who would have ever thought what Jesus said would have turned out the way it turned out? I mean, think about this for a moment. It's almost silly. Jesus sees him walking and he says, "Up, there's a man, a true Israelite, a man of great integrity." Nathaniel's like, "You don't know me, you don't know my mama, you don't know where I was raised." I mean, Nathaniel's coming at him and he says, "How you know me?" He says, I saw you. You were sitting under that fig tree. I saw you before Philip ever found you. And then something happens. He has a revelation, and you've always seen me, and you've always known me, and you've seen me under every fig tree that I've ever been in my life, and you've seen every tear that I've ever cried, and you've seen every prayer that I've ever prayed. You have seen me all the days of my life. There is not one thing that you are not aware of, and yet you still love me, and yet you still call me a man of integrity, and yet you still tell me that you have a plan and you have a purpose, that you tell me you want me to be in your family. But how is that possible? Jesus knows exactly what to say, and he says, I saw you when you were over there under the tree before Philip found you, because I have always had my eyes on you, and I've always had a plan, and I've always had a purpose. And Jesus just says these few words, but something else gets communicated in his heart, and Nathanael cries out and he says, "Teacher, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." How did he come to that conclusion? Because that's what happens when you let Jesus do what Jesus does. That's not the approach I would have taken. That's not the way I would have done it. But that's the way Jesus did it, because he always knows what the person needs to hear. He meets them exactly where they are. See, too many of us carry the pressure that we have to do Jesus' job. I don't have to do Jesus' job. I'm not good at Jesus' job. I don't do Jesus' job. I just do my job. I'm just the inviter. I'm just the initiator. I'm just the introducer. And if I can just get people moving, Jesus is big enough and strong enough to handle whatever questions, whatever problems, whatever doubts that they are bringing with them from underneath their fig tree. Jesus can handle it all. But my job is just to get them moving. You see, folks, we got to know our role. And when you know your role and say, I'm just going to initiate, I'm just going to invite, I'm just trying to get you to take a step. And when you start smoothing the path for them and you say, hey, I'm going to build a bridge of understanding. I understand that life has been hard. I understand where you're going through. That's fine. Your cussing's not going to bother me. All of your stories are. I'm building a bridge right now to help you get across. You can't push me away because you tell me about all the nasty things you've done. You can't push me away because you tell me what you believe about God. You can't push me away because I'm building this bridge for you. I'm going to smooth the path for you. And if I can just get you over the bridge and I can just get you moving this way, whenever you get to Jesus, I know he can take care of everything. But Nathanael never comes if you don't narrow your focus. Nathanael doesn't get there without Philip. Your friend might not get there without you. Narrow your focus. Don't say, I'm going to invite somebody sometime. No, you say, I'm going to invite Cindy tomorrow morning. I'm going to invite Frank Tuesday at lunch. I'm going to invite Jonathan Thursday afternoon. Narrow your focus, and let's reach our Nathaniels. Come on, will you stand with me? Why don't you bow your heads just for a moment? Just bow your heads just for a second, because here's what I know today. I know that some of you in the room, you actually are Nathaniel. You are Nathaniel. You're sitting under the fig tree of your own way, of your own opinion, of your own life. You're sitting under the fig tree of your own past, your own sin, your own unforgiveness, your own bitterness. You're sitting under the fig tree of your mistakes and your flaws. You're sitting under that fig tree and you're just not connected with Jesus. Well, can I be Philip today? And can I tell you, come and see? Come and see. Nathaniel, come and see. Maybe today, it's just been a long time since you really engaged with Jesus. Maybe it's just been a long time. Maybe you grew up in church. Maybe you were baptized when you're 12. But if you were honest, you say, I'm not really connected with Jesus. And today, I'm a little bit like Nathaniel, sitting under my own fig tree, doing life my own way. But you say, today I know I need to be engaged with the Savior of my soul. I need to be engaged with the hope of the world. I need to be engaged with Jesus Christ. And today, with every head bowed, every eye closed, listen, I'm not going to ask you to step out in the aisle. I'm not going to ask you to come down front today. But right there where you are, if you say, Philip, I am Nathaniel. I am Nathaniel. I've never engaged God, or it's been a long time since I've engaged God, but today I want to take that step. Today I want to get out under my fig tree and I want to begin to connect with Jesus and follow Him. If that's you right there where you are, I just want to know who I'm praying for this morning. If that's you, just slip your hand up in the air and say, Philip, you're talking to me right now. I am Nathaniel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am Nathaniel. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Now, how many of you would say, I want to be Philip? I want to be Philip. I want to know my role. I don't want to get confused about my role, which could create paralysis in my life, but I just want to know my role that says, hey, I'm just the initiator. I'm just the inviter. I'm just the introducer. I know my role. Say, I want to be Philip. I want to smooth the path. I'm tired of putting roadblocks in the pathway. I need to smooth the path. If I just got to get people into the presence of Jesus, Jesus can do the rest. I've got to smooth the path. Say, I want to be like Philip. I want to narrow my focus. I don't want to live my whole life saying somebody someday. I'm ready to go meet my Nathaniel and to invite them into a life-giving relationship with Jesus Christ. Today in this place, you say, that's me. I want to be Philip. This is the way that I want to live my life. I want to find people under the fig trees and I want to tell them, come and see what God can do. Come and see how Jesus loves you. Come and see what God can restore and redeem. Come and see what God can heal. Come and see the future that God has for you. Come and see. You say, Philip, that's what I want. I want to be Philip. Come on, if that's you, just shoot your hand up in the air right now. Say, that's me. That's who I want to be. That's who I want to be. I want to know my role. I want to know my role. I want to smooth the path. I want to narrow my focus. I want to see my Nathaniels come to Jesus. Come on, all over this place right now, will you pray this prayer with me? Say, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your forgiveness and grace. I believe that you are my Lord and my Savior. I'm ready to be Philip. I'm ready to find my Nathaniel. I am ready to know my role, to smooth the path, and to narrow my focus so that I can make a difference Father, I thank you so much for each and every person today that is in this room. And God, I thank you as we lifted our hand, whether we said, I am Nathaniel, or we lifted our hand and we said, I want to be Philip. I believe that this is a life-changing day. God, that we have a new identity today. God, that we find ourselves sitting around your table as your sons and your daughters, our sins forgiven, God. Lord, a brand new life on the inside of us. And God, today, if we said, I am Philip, we are walking out of these doors and we realize that we have been called to be the inviter. We've been called to be the introducer. God, we have a role to play in this story. It's your story about how you love the world, but God, you have included us in it. And for that, we are so grateful. Let us help people by smoothing the path for them to get people in relationship with you. And God, let us narrow our focus this week, not saying somebody, sometime, but God, that we would put a name and a time on it. God, that we would extend that invitation and that we would see you